Hello there, very good evening. This is the weekend edition of Primetime News on TV1 for the News First, where the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this evening.
President meets professionals' unions. Talks unsuccessful. Protests against unfair tax policy to continue, say unions. Moves to appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as Prime Minister, says parliamentarian Professor Channa Jayasumana. Chairman of the Election Commission writes to the Speaker seeking his intervention in funding the election. Farmers accuse the government of not purchasing their paddy. First consignment of imported eggs to arrive in the country tomorrow.
Now the stories in detail. The collective of professional trade unions says the discussions held with the president were unsuccessful.
The Professional Trade Unions Collective and President Ranil Wickremesinghe met for talks at the Presidential Secretariat today. 40 trade unions, including the Government Medical Officers Association, Ports, Electricity, Banking, Petroleum and University teachers, joined this discussion.
We did not get the reply we were expecting. We once again submitted a proper written list of suggestions to the President and relevant officials after taking the circumstances into consideration. They said they will be ready to listen to us by next week. They also invited us to explain it to the IMF. The question they ask, the argument they bring up and the excuse they give at this point is that the IMF will retract the relief package they are about to give us if we try to suggest various amendments.
The following views were expressed by the Director General of Trade Unions to President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Saman Ratnapriya.
They actually had some positive suggestions to make. The point made by the President and the officials was that there is a certain agreement between the country and the IMF. If that agreement falls apart, the country will come back to square one. Because of that, measures need to be taken so that the requirements of the people and the citizens of the country can be fulfilled while not breaking the agreement with the IMF. With positive suggestions from both parties, it was agreed upon that these groups of professionals should have a discussion with the IMF.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe says a separate unit will be established to send military personnel overseas to assist in times of health disasters. The head of state was speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the 6th annual academic sessions of the Sri Lanka College of Military Medicine. The event was held under the theme Resilience of Military Medicine in Times of Crisis.
While you are here to discuss military resilience in military medicine in times of crisis, I have to, on the other hand, to think of medicine in the times of economic crisis. Today, before I came here, I ensured that under the Indian credit line that we could be able to get more medicine. And now we are working on making more foreign exchange available to the medical sector. Now this alone is not sufficient to train our medical personnel. I have discussed with the Ministry of Health the need to upgrade the MRI into one of the best medical research laboratories in the region. We should ourselves have a good laboratory, a series of laboratories to carry out our own research. We are looking at paying wards in government hospitals, and I also want to introduce non-paying wards in private hospitals where the government will take the tab for the treatment that is given in those non-paying wards.
Professor Channa Jayasumana says a group from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna have requested the Freedom People's Alliance to support moves to appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as Prime Minister. He was responding to questions raised at an event today.
In fact, a group of our friends in the ruling party have made such a request from us. They say they are attempting to remove Dinesh Gunawardena from the Prime Minister's seat and to bring back Mahinda Rajapaksa as Prime Minister. This is like trying to change the pillow to fix a headache. The only solution to the crisis in the country is for the entire government to go home. changing the Prime Minister will be of no consequence. We must clearly state that neither the Freedom People's Alliance nor any of its members will support attempts being made by the government to change the Prime Minister or to appoint anyone of their choosing. In my opinion, it would be better for Mahinda Rajapaksa to retire and stay at home. Perhaps then he can preserve his name and reputation.
රට වෙනුවෙන් කරපු යමක් තියෙ නම් එහි කීර්ති නාමය ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න ඒක හේතුවක් වෙයි කියන එකයි මගේ නම් විශ්වාසය.
General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Sagara Karyavasam said disciplinary action will be taken against MPs who left the party, including Professor Channa Jayasumana. MPs Chamal Rajapaksa and Namal Rajapaksa rejected the statement made by MP Channa Jayasumana.
As the ruling party, the SLPP has named a Prime Minister. While there is a Prime Minister, there is no need to look for another Prime Minister. They were the first people to write a letter for Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign. Will we ask the same people to join us? They don't remember how they won elections and entered parliament after taking pictures with Mahinda Rajapaksa. There is someone like that here as well. Did people know them? Now they have become independent. They are neither here nor there and are making claims. The people can respond to them. We will soon fight to call for an election.
The National Election Commission has written to the Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abewardhana seeking his intervention in acquiring funds to conduct the local government election.
Chairman of the Election Commission, Attorney Nimal Punchiheva, stated that the relevant letter was forwarded to the Speaker last afternoon. News First inquired from the Speaker on the matter. The Speaker confirmed that he received the letter and said that steps will be taken in future following discussions.
I will take measures that can and should be taken. Parliament has approved the funds and the funds need to be obtained thereafter. The Finance Ministry doesn't receive funds daily. The expenses for the year are released according to estimates and are spent in portions.
Yesterday, the National Election Commission announced that the local government election will not be held on the 9th of March. The Commission is expected to announce a new election date on the 3rd of March. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa requested that the President refrains from engaging in acts of political cowardice during the upcoming local government election. He expressed these views during a rally held in Mullathiri yesterday.
I urge the President, don't act in fear and carry out acts of political cowardice. Give the people the opportunity to reply. Out of fear, he claims that there are no funds to hold the election. But there are enough funds to organize events as he wishes. Can the Election Commission be changed just because proposals were passed in Parliament? When an election was announced, nominations were accepted and election campaigning got underway. Although the election was postponed, no one has the ethical right to change members of the Election Commission. Mr. President, please stop behaving like a coward in Parliament and allocate the funds necessary to hold this election. If anyone is involved in a conspiracy to stop this election under an SJB-led government, we will bring up all such people before the law.
The Frontline Socialist Party says despite the existence of the National Election Commission, it is the politicians who make the final decision regarding the election.
Ranil Wickremesinghe පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට කඩම් පැනලා
Speaking in Parliament, Ranil Wickremesinghe said with certainty that the election will not be held. So it is not the decision of the Commission. The decision of the Commission is just a piece of paper with a signature. Ranil Wickremesinghe had already decided the election will not be held. So will the election be held or not? If it is, when? Will the election be held before the due date? The final decisions are made by politicians. Although they claim there is a lack of funds to hold the election, what they really lack are votes. That is why they are not holding the election. The people must take to the streets to demand for elections.
The National People's Power says that the President has undermined the democratic rights of the people of the country through his actions over the election.
He is undermining and making fun of the rights of the people, their democratic right. Who is Ranil Wickremesinghe? Not a single vote has been cast in favour of Ranil Wickremesinghe becoming president without a mandate. He is mocking the people by saying there is no election. We warn Ranil that the time for jokes is over. The election must be held. Either the election commission holds the election or the people have the right to force an election.
Media spokesperson of the Tamil National Alliance President's Council, M.A. Sumanthiran, said that there are no true public representatives in the parliament, provincial councils and local government institutions.
They are obstructing this without releasing funds from the treasury. The finance minister must be held responsible. 100 million rupees has been allocated for this purpose so far under him. The local government election that is due to be held must be held promptly. It must be held before the 19th of March, according to the law. The President made a statement against the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Salia Peris. He is a senior lawyer and has served this country devoid of any political affiliations. We condemn the statements made against him.
If a person is blind, we can take them to a doctor and try to get their vision back. If a person is hard of hearing, we can get them a hearing aid. If a person is handicapped, we can get them a wheelchair. However, we can't help a person who pretends to be blind to see clearly. Why? Because they can actually see but are pretending to be blind. Stop trying to fool the people. They already know what you are doing.
Multiple protests were staged across the country today against the electricity tariff hikes.
This is a protest that was staged in Maharagama.
The minister says that the use of candles cost more than 2,000 rupees. We'd like to tell this minister to reduce the electricity tariff immediately. If you don't do so, you will not be able to stop the citizens from taking to the streets.
We will take action against this government that violates the rights of the people. They will not be able to stop the people who are battered by this electricity tariff hike from taking to the streets.
A protest organised by the People's Struggle Movement was held opposite the Valasmula Base Hospital. The protest was staged against the electricity tariff hike, medicine shortage and state-sponsored suppression.
Up next is Action TV.
A recent statement from the top office of the country said legal action cannot resolve economic problems. Although this statement was disregarded by the people of Sri Lanka, if it was made in a country such as India, where the right to life is accepted, it will lead to a wide political and public discourse. Within the context of the right to life, and as economic problems can affect the living standard of the people, seeking the assistance of the judiciary in solving economic problems is not a futile endeavor. As making economic decisions is a highly legal process, seeking the assistance of the judiciary in challenging cases where that process was violated is ideal. The recent decision to amend the electricity tariffs made on the 15th of February can be challenged in court.
What happened yesterday was something that should never have happened. When the chairman and the director general are not in the country, they summoned the acting director general and the commission secretary to the president's office and prepared some documents there. It is not wise to impose on an independent commission. If the law of the country is not respected, where will this country lead to? The members had convened without my knowledge and had illegally amended the tariff without calling for the stakeholders' consultations as well. I, Janaka Ratnayaka, as the chairman, will personally take all legal action and seek relief over this matter.
While PUCSL chairman Janaka Ratnayaka was about to take matters to court, the CEB, in their usual routine carried out every February, brought up the false problem of providing power to the southern province. This is the proposal that suggests if a continuous electricity supply is to be provided to the southern province, an emergency purchase of 100 megawatts is essential. Presenting the proposal to the PUCSL, the Ceylon Electricity Board is creating the backdrop to provide an opportunity to a thermal power plant belonging to a private company. According to this special audit report, the process of purchasing electricity from the relevant private thermal power plant is a direct blow to the electricity consumers of the country. Join us tomorrow as we bring you more details of this report.
An event titled Empowering Sri Lanka, organized by the People's Convention for Good Governance, was held at the BMICH in Colombo today.
Lack of finances, malnutrition families, increasing crime rates, and a government that people find questionable. Today we are here at the BMICH where the launch of Empowering Lanka took place. Organized by the People's Convention for Good Governance, a dedicated group of members and intellectual guests shared their thoughts and opinions about how this problem can be solved.
The People's Convention for Good Governance described themselves as a group of people who are deeply concerned about the deteriorating economy of the country and how leaders have neglected implementing educational reforms, together with a myriad of questionable acts of irrational governance.
Once we get this foundation going, the Empowering Lanka, we are trying to launch it by having 500 youths from the south, north, east and west, simultaneously starting meeting, crossing the center of the country and going to those destinations to propagate what we have in mind to alleviate poverty. We want to somehow promote 30 to 40% women in parliament because they are far better workers than men.
We want to see sustainable and meaningful change as well as inclusive change, because all this time what has gone wrong in this country is a lot of people have been excluded. So now it is high time for us to start the process of inclusion. So this platform will be a golden opportunity for us to start the process of inclusion and do our part as citizens of Sri Lanka. That's the aim of this program.
The event was attended by several dignitaries, including past and present members of parliament and professionals.
26 people were injured when a bus transporting a group of pilgrims toppled in the Nelligal area in the Kandy district. Police said a majority of the injured are women. The injured were admitted to the Peradeniya hospital. A hospital spokesperson said none of the injured are critical. The group, who are residents of Moratua, were travelling to Nelligala on pilgrimage.
News First with the people.
The first shipment of imported eggs is expected to arrive tomorrow.
A shipment carrying the first batch of eggs imported from India will reach the island tomorrow. The Ministry of Trade says that the stock contains 2 million eggs. It has been decided to use these eggs for bakery products only.
The inaugural review of the Sri Lanka Innovators Forum, a project of the Gamini Korea Foundation, was held in Colombo on Friday.
Former Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy delivered a presentation on the need for an international mechanism for aid coordination at the inaugural review of the Sri Lanka Innovators Forum.
One thing we need to take cognizance of is the paradigm shift that we have experienced. And that is when we graduated from a low-income country to a middle-income country. One, we lost access to a lot of concessional money. In addition, generally there is an expectation that Sri Lanka as a middle-income country is now a market access country. So even bilateral donors are reluctant to give significant amounts of official assistance because there isn't, we've come nowhere near meeting the 0.7% of GDP or GNI target for ODA. So there is a scarcity of official assistance even for the poor countries. So if you're a middle-income country, it's not easy to attract large amounts of official assistance. So therefore, we have been pushed into this market access country category. That's what Sri Lanka is now called. It's called a market access country. We are expected to find our own way of financing our development. Transition then exposes us to rating agencies and capital markets. Now that is a transition that we did not fully adjust. One should not use external borrowing to promote non-tradables. So, and that is one of the reasons why we've got into this debt crisis. You know, we need to have a much more structured and less ad hoc way of getting projects into the public investment program. You know, when you're looking at these projects, it's very important to have the concept of opportunity cost in mind. We often forget about this opportunity cost business. We take projects on an ad hoc basis as they come, and we take them on board with no concern for what it might be taking resources away from.
The Gamani Korea Foundation, an autonomous non-profit charitable institution founded on internationally acclaimed economist, the late Dr. Gamani Korea, has decided to take the initiative to actively participate in contributing to the economic recovery of Sri Lanka.
The UN Human Rights Committee will hold its upcoming session from 27th of February to 24th of March, during which it will review 6 countries, including Sri Lanka.
Egypt, Turkmenistan, Zambia, Peru, Panama and Sri Lanka are scheduled to be reviewed at the upcoming UN Human Rights Committee session. The 6 parties are among the 173 members of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. They are required to undergo regular reviews by the committee of 18 independent international experts on how they are implementing the covenant, as well as the committee's previous recommendations. The Human Rights Committee, which has received the respective country reports and other submissions from non-governmental organizations, will discuss a range of issues with the 6 delegations through public dialogues. In the meantime, the 52nd UN Human Rights Council sessions are also set to begin on the 27th of February to the 4th of April 2023.
Finance leaders of the world's biggest economies were entangled in differences today on resolving the debt burden of distressed developing nations. This is according to participants as quoted by foreign media. The delegates said the meeting of finance ministers and central bank chiefs of the Group of 20 hosted by India was also expected to end without a joint communique because there was no consensus on how to describe the conflict in Ukraine.
The International Monetary Fund held a meeting today with the World Bank, China, India, Saudi Arabia and the G7 on restructuring debt for distressed economies. But IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said there were disagreements among the members. Georgieva, who co-chaired the roundtable with Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, told reporters, quote, "We just finished a session in which it was clear that there is a commitment to bridge differences for the benefit of countries," end quote. Yellen said there was no deliverables from the meeting, which was mostly organizational. Further discussions of the panel are planned around the time of the IMF and World Bank spring meetings in April. Pressure has been building on China, the world's largest bilateral creditor, and other nations to take a large haircut in loans given to struggling developing nations. Yellen had said before the debt meeting that she would press all bilateral creditors, including China, to participate in a meaningful discussion, adding that financing assurances for Sri Lanka and debt treatment for Zambia were most urgent. Meanwhile, the US and its allies in the G7 have been adamant in demanding the communique squarely condemn Russia for the invasion of Ukraine, which participants said has been opposed by Russian and Chinese delegations. Russia, a member of G20 but not G7, refers to its action in Ukraine as a special military operation and avoids calling it an invasion or war. G20 officials have told Reuters that India is pressing the meeting to avoid using the word war in any communique. India, which holds this year's G20 presidency, has kept a large neutral stance on the war, declining to blame Russia for the invasion, seeking a diplomatic solution and sharply boosting its purchases of Russian oil.
Farmers are obtaining the harvest from the Maha season after facing numerous challenges, including the fuel crisis, fungal diseases and a shortage of weedicides and pesticides. But will the farmers get a proper price for their harvest?
The harvest for the Maha season has already been obtained in the Ampara, Bataklo and Trincomalee districts. Farmers are currently harvesting paddy in many districts including Anuradhapura, Hambantota and Polonnaruwa. This is the manner in which the paddy was being harvested in many villages including Thalgaswawa, Ihalamaragaha Wawa, which belongs to the Nochiagama Divisional Secretariat. Farmers in Muruthavela, Veerakatiya also sold paddy at 80 rupees because the certified price for paddy, which is limited to press releases, has not reached the market. Farmers of the Kirimatipitiya agrarian community in Polonnaruwa used sickles to harvest this season instead of the usual machinery to reduce the initial costs. During the past few seasons, farmers had to suffer because of the incorrect decisions made by officials. Now these officials say that the next season will be done flawlessly. But are they really ready to provide fertilizers and all other necessary facilities on time? When discussing the provision of fertilizer and other facilities, this is the reply given by officials representing the Department of Agriculture at the pre-season meeting of the Galloil Left Bank Residential Projects Office that was held on the 16th this month.
ලබන කන්නේ කිසිම වැඩපිළිවෙලක් නැහැ. ඉතාලම හොඳට පේනවා දිසාපතිවරුත් නොමග යවලා ගොවියොත් නොමග යවලා.
By now, the country has reached the pinnacle of poverty and children suffer from hunger and malnutrition. And this is all because the right decisions were not made at the right time. Dear officials, at least now, should you not help the farmers successfully cultivate the next season?
The New Zealand Education Fair 2023 was held in Colombo today.
The New Zealand Education Fair 2023 was attended by Michael Appleton, New Zealand High Commissioner to Sri Lanka.
From the fact that I'm approached every single day by Sri Lankans interested in going to New Zealand, that there is a huge demand for Sri Lankan students to come to New Zealand. It's been a very difficult year for the country in general, and New Zealand has been doing our best in our own modest ways to try and help the Sri Lankan people and the Sri Lankan government through this crisis. Many of these students will return and contribute to Sri Lanka as it seeks to recover from this very difficult crisis with new skills, new experiences, new education.
The fair showcased the benefit of international education to both Sri Lanka and New Zealand.
Tonight on Sri Lankan Sky Warriors, we take a look at the number 5 Jet Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force. News First, Pahan Chandramal filed this report.
Sri Lankan Sky Warriors.
Number 5 Jet Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force, which operates from the Katunayak Air Force Base, has completed over 600 counter-offensive operations. At present, the number 5 Jet Squadron has been under the leadership of 10 commanding officers. Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Pathirana was one of the first pilots of the squadron and became the head of the squadron at a crucial time in Sri Lanka's history. The number 5 Jet Squadron consists of a fleet of F-7 Skyballs, MiG-27s, MiG-23s and FT-7 fighter jets. During times of war, this squadron fulfills and executes several duties including supporting ground troops, target precision, destroying enemy aircraft and launching armed surveillance missions. During the last phase of the 3-decade war in Sri Lanka, fighter pilots of the number 5 Jet Squadron provided unwavering support to the advancements made against the LTT terror forces. Everything is ready for this F-7 Skybolt to launch an emergency mission.
Sri Lankan Sky Warriors.
The Navamaha Perahara of the Oloboduwa Raja Mahaviharaya in Horana started parading the streets a short while ago.
The Perahera is being held for the 13th time under the instructions of the chief incumbent of the Milano Lanka Ramaya in Italy, Shastrapati Venerable Dhammika Thero. It includes many colourful cultural items. The foundation stone for the third phase of the construction of the Sri Sumangala Dhamma school building of the Oloboduwa Raja Mahaviharaya was laid by the chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group, Sashi Raja Mahendran, earlier today. Group directors of the Capital Maharaja Group, including S.C. Veerasekara and Suranga Jayalath, participated at the event.
The nominees for the Raigam Tallies Awards were announced at a ceremony yesterday.
The event to announce the nominations for the 2022 Raigam Telly Awards was held in Colombo on Friday. Newsfirst received several nominations, including for the Best TV News Bulletin of the Year, Best News Presenter of the Year for English, Sinhala and Tamil languages, and Best Documentary Program of the Year. The 2022 Raigam Tellies Awards ceremony is to be held on the 25th of March.
Shifting your attention to international news. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake has hit off the eastern part of Japan's northern island of Hokkaido today. No tsunami warning has been issued. Another earthquake of magnitude 5.3 has shaken the central Anatolian Turkish province of Niğde just over 2 weeks after two devastating earthquakes that killed more than 50,000 people in Turkey and Syria.
Japanese media outlets carried no immediate reports of damage or injuries. The US Geological Survey stated that quake hit at 10:27 p.m. at a depth of around 43 kilometers. Earthquakes are common in Japan, which sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is an arc of intense seismic activity that stretches through Southeast Asia and across the Pacific Basin. The Turkish Disaster Management Agency said today's earthquake in Turkey had a depth of 7 kilometers and hit the Bor district at 1:27 p.m. No casualties have been reported so far.
Polls have been opened in Nigeria's presidential elections, seen as the most open since Africa's most populous nation switched from military rule to democracy in 1999. The hotly contested poll is being held simultaneously with voting for representatives for the country's parliament.
Nigeria, which is Africa's largest democracy, will be electing a president, vice president, Senate and House of Representatives. Nigeria transitioned from army rule to democracy in 1999, but its elections have been plagued by violence and fraud. This presidential race is seen as the most unpredictable in recent Nigerian history. According to pre-election surveys, 18 candidates are on the ballot for Nigeria's top, but 3 are leading the race for the popular vote. One of the key contenders is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the candidate of term-limited President Muhammadu Buhari's party, the All Progressive Congress. Another is the main opposition leader and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party. And third strong contender Peter Obi is running under the lesser-known Labour Party and altered early predictions of the presidential vote, which has typically been 2-horse races between the ruling and opposition parties. The ballot counting and collating process is expected to take several days.
That we bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1. For details of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First, where the people come first, I'm Martin Satyanes, and you take care and good night.